Welcome back to Late Night at the Movies and the Late Night Chat Network, episode 45, Terrifier 3 and Smile 2. Welcome back, everybody, to the Late Night Chat Network, your first stop for pop culture talk. Did you know that's our new slogan around these parts? There you go. Welcome back, though, to another episode of Late Night at the Movies. And yes, this is kind of like more of an impromptu episode, which we decided to put together because, you know, during spooky season, spooky month here on Late Night at the Movies, we've actually succeeded in putting out a new episode every week of this month. Just because, you know, we like horror movies so much around here. And between Christine's first pick that kicked off the month here, Beetlejuice, if you guys missed that, go back and check it out. Yeah, we talked about Beetlejuice and the original Beetlejuice.
Well, yes, but
yeah, so go back and check that out in the playlist if you guys missed out on that episode. Last week we did Halloween. And then, you know, me and Christine, we had seen a couple of newer movies that had come out. And as we tend to do now with Late Night at the Movies, if we have enough to say on certain new films that have come out and we have the time and the people to do them, we kind of try to throw out some other additional episodes. And so, yeah, here we are. And next week, stay tuned. It'll be me, Julie, and JT. We'll be discussing the first Crow movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, you're more than welcome to join us for. But I mean, if
I
not,
need to watch the movie.
Yeah, we had you on here today. So yeah, welcome back, Christine. What's
Thank
going
you.
on?
Not much. Did you like our intro? I've never been so still in my life.
Yeah, we figured it'd be more eerie if we just stood there staring, smiling. As I mentioned, so if you haven't already realized, we are talking about Smile 2 and Terrifier 3, both sequels to horror films that are kind of like, I would say, more like of the new wave of like horror films, horror, definitely. And Terrifier 3 as well as X. I was listening to actually another movie podcast earlier today, and they had kind of said that those were basically paved the way for all the new slashers that we're seeing within the last probably like, you know, 8 or so years, 10 years kind of area. Like, if you're going back to the time the Terrifier, the first one came out. Yeah. And then Smile and Terrifier, the last time they were in theaters was 2 years ago in 2022. At least Terrifier 2 was, and I believe Smile was too. Yeah, I believe so. If you want to, I don't know if you want to look that up, but I believe if I'm not mistaken, the last time both these movies were in theaters was about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely Terrifier 2 was. So
Smile 2022.
And I believe Terrifier 2 was as well at that time.
Terrifier 2 2022. You are correct.
So there you go. Here we are 2 years later, and it is around Halloween time.
2 new sequels.
And 2 new sequels from these, you know, franchises now, as far as, you know, I'm concerned. Yeah. These are big franchises now. Smile 2, of course. Smile has been a big success. I think that as you can tell by our background, the second movie, the sequel to this film, has been getting a lot of buzz. You know, for one being the fact that Jack Nicholson's son was in this
which
film,
is featured on our background.
Ray Nicholson, who had a great part in it, but we'll get to that. That's not really a spoiler. I think
since he was a poster boy.
Yeah, he was on one of the posters. They were pushing the fact that, of course, Jack Nicholson's son was in this movie.
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, The Shining, and, you know, he's
just the maniacalness of Jack Nicholson.
That smile, right? Yep. So, and he really does look like him. It's pretty crazy.
Oh my God, it's spot on. It's weird. It's like reincarnated, which I guess so, because it's his child.
Absolutely. But yeah, as always, everyone like and subscribe. And make sure to check us out once again. Like I said, next week, every week in this October spooky season here, we're dropping a new episode of Late Night at the Movies. So make sure to check us out. Check our playlist. We've been dropping a lot of episodes lately and having a great time doing it. and I'm happy Christina's able to join us again here today. So
too.
so we're gonna try to keep these mostly spoiler free for everybody out there. I figured because these are movies that really just came out the last couple of weeks, so we want to try to keep it generally spoiler free. But we will kind of talk about what we thought of the movies, maybe just in general, even compared to maybe their previous installments of these films. And, some of our, thoughts and feelings on it. We'll let you know if we are going to drop a spoiler ahead of time. But as always, spoiler warning, guys, on this one. Since, late night at the movies, we do tend to talk about a lot of older films and stuff like that we're revisiting. Just in case, we will put a spoiler warning out there in case we do let something slip. But we'll try our best here not to mention it. So which one do you want to talk about first here?
Well, let's go with Terrifier 3 because we saw that first.
Okay. So Terrifier 3, we watched in a big theater this year, which is honestly just to see the growth of this film from a little film that we found on like Tubi.
Yeah.
We
never heard anything before. We just were scrolling as we do in October and came across this weird friggin' clown art on it. Well, art, I didn't mean his name is Art the Clown, but
that's right. Yeah.
The art of the movie poster.
Yeah.
Which
if you've seen the first Terrifier poster, it's just a grinning clown.
Black and white clown. Yeah.
So we're like, oh, this looks interesting. Let's give it a whirl.
Know nothing about it, and I'm always down for a shitty horror movie.
Right.
And it turned out to be like the best shitty you could possibly.
Or did we come across All Hallows Eve originally? No.
So
we backtracked. Okay.
Yeah.
So once we watched Terrifier, the first movie, we found out that so technically he first appeared in 2 shorts by Damien Leone, the guy who basically does the makeup, graphic, like the practical effects, like all the makeup design,
he's
of
the
these
director, writer of everything
as well.
Yeah,
yes, but especially for the first couple of movies that he did, it was all him doing the makeup stuff. He's also like he's like a huge fan of horror films and obviously slashers, and he knows how to do makeup and stuff like that, like practical effect type stuff.
All the prosthetics and stuff.
Prosthetics. So he especially in the first film of the Terrifier, now he has more of a team behind him, but he did a lot of he basically made the look of this Art the Clown, and he actually did it previously in 2 shorts that he did. He did do a Terrifier short, and he also did a short called The Ninth Circle.
Right.
And those 2 shorts basically became shorts in an anthology movie called All Hallows Eve. He took basically those shorts and put them in All Hallows Eve. They had another that weird alien.
Oh my god! if you're into like weird, very B horror, just All Hallows Eve. It's the wackiest thing, and like low budget.
I think Terrifier and All Hallows Eve are still on Tubi. Terrifier 2,
they are.
Terrifier 2, I just found out was removed recently for whatever reason, at least here in Canada.
Probably because it got high.
It's been very popular lately, I guess. But anyways, the original Terrifier and I believe All Hallows Eve are still on there for free if you guys want to watch it on there. But yeah, that was the anthology movie that had those shorts that he previously did. And that kind of set up this character, Art the Clown, who was actually played by a different actor in those films. Actually, the first couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually played. I don't know the actor's name. My apologies, but it was played by somebody different.
In All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, okay, if you check that out, check that. It's played by a different actor in those first couple of things. Terrifier, even the original, I believe is
the guy who's been doing it.
But
Mike Gianelli.
Yes, so he's the original.
Yeah.
And at that time in those earlier movies, he doesn't even have that extra piece that they put on for his face where they sculpted it.
Well, the cheeks.
David Howard Thornton is the new guy that plays Art the Clown. So they actually added like a bunch of prosthetics on his face now.
Face all sunken in.
So before they literally was just like like the actual pullover and makeup on his face. So he actually just had like the actual
and the weird little dot on his nose.
So he looks a little different in the earlier thing.
Well, and his eyebrows are just like weird little like black McDonald's arches.
But if you guys are new to the Terrifier franchise or are interested by hearing us talk about it here today, definitely go back and check out those earlier installments just to kind of see the character evolve. Yeah. So like you can tell like how low budget it was before. And indie, and honestly is still to this day, like this is owned by Damien Leone. Like he shops this around, like he puts this out, himself, as far as I know. Like they've obviously have made more bigger deals with different distributors now.
Yeah.
But I mean, each movie he's gotten more money in order to put into the film, and it shows.
But it's still low budget.
Absolutely, absolutely.
In comparison to other films, like I think this one was what the 3 was. I think 2 million.
No, it's got to be more than that.
I think
it's got to be more than that. Million. No, I think this one was like, wasn't it like 15 million, 10 or 15 million? This one, is it lower? I might be wrong. I know the last one, like I think they had a crowd fund the last one, if I'm not mistaken. I think it won
2 million.
Wow. I'm like, I thought it was way bigger than that. No. I thought it was like 10 at least, this one. Well, there you go. I think those are,
they've made
I think that's the money they've been making then in theaters. Okay. Maybe that's what I heard. I think it made like 15 million or something.
I think the first one was like 45K.
Okay. There you go.
And so I don't think they made a lot at the beginning, but then they had a 1-day release 2 years ago or last year or something, or maybe just before Terrifier 2 came out. They did a 1-day release, probably in the States.
Okay.
For like a theater release,
a festival. Yeah, they did it at a festival.
Like a one day.
Yeah,
and they like quadrupled their money.
Yes, that I did see. I seen a post about that.
It was like they made like 700K or something.
Yeah, I think
like
the 10 or 15 I'm talking about is I think how much they made like back
on the
first
Thursday.
weekend. Yeah, on the first day or something.
Just like the
that.
pre-release Thursday. Yeah, I think they killed it. It was crazy.
Yeah. So so there you go. It truly is still like an indie horror film, and the fact that like they own everything and they're putting this out is really promising, and honestly really nice to see after all the years and obviously time and interest that they've put into these people. The first guy walked away from it because he didn't want to sit there and put on the prosthetics every day anymore. Like he grew tired of that. I mean,
that's exhausting. I don't think I'd be able to do it.
That's not for everybody, but I mean, this guy eats it up. He loves it, obviously. And honestly, all
in his off hours,
all the promo that this guy has been doing as this character. Yeah. Like you said, going around, there's all these like man on the street type of stuff where he's like going to stores, like he's going to like a Spencer's gifts and walking in because they sell his products there. It's like Hot Topics, right? Like Spencer's.
We have a couple in Canada, but not as much as the States,
right? And like he'll go into I don't know if he went into did he go into Spirit, or I think he may have.
The only one I watched was the Spencer's one.
But like he's been going around the street and doing stuff, going to cons, dressing up as him. Like he'll come in like full costume for the con and stuff like that. So like that's really cool to see. They've been doing a lot of promo stuff, like a lot of stuff when they're out there just dressing up and screwing with folks.
Yeah, I think he went to like just a couple malls and stuff like that. Not even like big stores or whatever, just malls around wherever they were.
Right.
And just like fucked with people, and it was great.
Right.
I know they were handing out merch and stuff.
And obviously when all the lead up to this film, like as always, it's like, oh, you hear all these stories about people walking out or barfing and like this kind of stuff. And it's always hard to tell if those are for real or, and at this point, you're the third movie in the series.
You know what the movie's about.
Right. Like, I don't know who these people are that are going to this that can't take it, because like, obviously each film opens up with some gruesome kill, like right. So like, it's like, listen, is there something wrong with the people that are going to these movies and laughing and enjoying themselves? Maybe. I don't know. All I got to say is we really enjoy ourselves. Yeah. We really enjoy ourselves at these films. We really have a good time checking these movies out. And for the first time ever, because even to see it grow from us streaming the first movie on a streaming service where it had no buzz, I felt like at that time, to the second movie coming out, them kind of getting a buzz.
Very small release.
You would see some stuff in Spirit Halloween all of a sudden. You saw some stuff in Hot Topic. Like I remember when shirts started showing up all of a sudden. And like, we're like, oh, people know about this now, right? Like and you start seeing people dress up as it. We went to like a very small theater. There was only like one theater in this,
in all of Toronto that played it.
They were playing it. That we went to go watch it at for the Terrifier 2, and that was cool. People were dressed up for that.
Event.
People were dressed up for that. Had all the gear on and stuff like that. So like, to see that and to see less like the fan base kind of grow. And now with the third one, I feel like it's like there's memes going around now. There's he's everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. So like, and if you go to Spirit, he's all over the place. They got life-size dummies now, animatronics now of him. If you go into a lot of stores, he was actually even, I don't know if you remember, he was He made an appearance on that Pete Davidson show, Bupkiss. Remember, he did that show, and he was in the mental ward in one of his. He was in rehab. Yeah, we watched it, but this is like during pandemic times. This is after the second movie. Yeah, this is the Pete Davidson show that he did. He did a show, a comedy. And there's a clip, actually, if you guys want to look it up, if you put Terrifier Bupkiss clip on YouTube. I actually just seen this again for the other day, and I forgot about it too. There's a scene where he's in rehab, and he's starting to see all these random people, like, I guess in his head, because he's like flushing out the drugs. And in the actual group circle, all of a sudden is Terrifier, and he's like honking the horn and stuff like that and waving at him. I don't remember this at all. So like he's broken through, I think, to popular culture now.
Well, I think they've officially kind of put him into the status of like the new slasher.
Absolutely.
Like, he's now definitely like inaugurated.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Into like the classic horror. Like, I think Ghostface was the most
of the 90s.
Yeah,
Ghostface was the slasher of the 90s.
But yeah, we haven't had anybody since. Terrifier is definitely the newest one.
That's what I was trying to say, though, that the podcast I was listening to is citing movies like X and this, and even more
X
so
is
this.
Great, but it doesn't have like a distinct.
But it was a trilogy of slasher films.
Like just like a classic character.
Sure.
That is now like iconic in a way that can't be like, you're never gonna get rid of.
I think if they didn't
character,
I think if they didn't go another direction for the third film, Maxine, you would have been saying the same thing about that trilogy, because it was the same woman. It was the same woman in two films.
I don't see that character anywhere. Like, I don't see it on.
That's fair.
I don't see it on Pops. I don't see it.
You're right.
Like, it doesn't have the same.
But as a slasher film and an indie, those were very highly regarded.
But that's not what I was trying to get at.
As a character,
like as a character, and as the popularization in like all media.
Right.
Like, I think he has surpassed like movies. He is now, I think, as a culture and
as a character, like in the popular culture.
Yeah, like he is now like indebted into like the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy, Ghostface, and now I think it's Art the Clown to round that out.
Right. Well, that's the funnest thing about these films. I mean, I know everybody will go and tell you, obviously, the kills are hardcore and there's funny moments as well.
And they are, but it's great.
But I think it's the character that really keeps people showing up. And I think you also got to give it up to David Howard Thornton for all of the work he's put into this character as well, like his expressionism while he's doing these things, just the energy that I feel like he brings. And of course, this is a character that doesn't talk. Of course, there's people that have pointed out the fact, well, he's not a clown, he's a mime then, but whatever, it's Art the Clown. Yeah. And I feel like the first movie, as low budget as that one was, even compared to the third one, as it's kept growing in terms of the budget. Because I feel like if this one was $2 million, I feel like I heard the last one was it $500,000 or something like that? Because I believe they crowdfunded that, even if I'm not mistaken.
Terrifier 2 was only $250K.
So there you go, not even $500,000. So this is quite the jump for them. And I believe they said that the fourth film, there is a next one coming, could have been the last, but now I'm hearing the fourth and or fifth film will be the last. So there's a possibility that,
depending, I guess,
based on, I think, how this film did, they might do 5 of them, I'm hearing now, because apparently the actor who plays Art also has some ideas that he's been talking about for the character. And really, at the end of the day, we still don't know too much about him as a character yet. We're learning a little bit more. Yeah, but what I'm liking about it still too is that the origins of this character and the way that this world works and the supernatural parts of these films, it still has left some questions on the table, which I actually appreciate.
Yeah,
because I don't always need to know all the answers to these things.
They're not spoon feeding you anything.
There's still some mysteriousness, honestly, like behind like the main final girl, which we actually do have now as a result of the last 2 films, which we didn't have in the first one. They do have their own final girl now.
Through line of plot.
Yeah. And with the third film, I'm happy to say it actually had the most story out of any of the films so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like, I feel like the first one, there was no story. You're basically
because they just threw something against a wall and hope it hit, and it did.
Right. And then the second film, you're introduced to the final girl of this series now. I mean, you didn't know whether or not that was going to stick or if she was going to survive, but she did end up surviving the second film, and she is in this film. And yeah, this is basically the final girls of this series, as there is in all classic horror movies. And you know, you're starting to learn a little bit more about her, the trauma that she's experienced as a result of surviving the second film in this movie. But I feel like by the third film, you're learning a little bit more about what Art is, not who he is, but what he is. Yeah. And I feel like between the second and the third movie, at this point, like, I think it's safe to say he's some sort of demon of some sort. 100%. Right. So
he's an entity from hell.
Right. So, I mean, which, you know, I'm sure you could easily have guessed anyways, but you know, you really get a lot more out of that story, I feel like, in the third film, while still leaving questions on the table. Like I said, they do a good job of balancing that, where they're like, you are still trying to, they're not straight up just telling you this is what it is. You got to make assumptions for yourself. You got to kind of take what you will from the clues that they give you, or like the way they describe things in these movies. What did you think of the kills in this one?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Did you think they've outdone themselves once again with this third installment? So my favorite kill still, I feel like, out of the whole series, though, I still think remains in the second movie. I rewatched it today, as I mentioned. That one bedroom scene with the with the well, you know, basically with literally rubbing salt in a wound and the filleting of somebody sitting on a bed after he's basically already killed her. For me, I think the lengths that they went to for that kill, I still think may top everything. But there is something, I think, in this movie, which with the glass pipe, which
that was my okay. We're gonna end it there.
Yeah. which I think, you know,
apparently even what's his name,
David Howard Thornton, yeah,
even had issues with filming. So that alone should tell you, like, because that had me like, just the eeriness of like that whole visual, and I'm like, it hurt me to watch it.
Yeah,
but I will say the second movie
gave it a run for its money.
Fuck yeah, it did. I think the second movie was shocking. Like, the first movie had the iconic scene of like the saw happening.
Yeah.
I won't describe it, but there's a saw scene that was incredibly shocking at the time. And again, for a fucking low budget movie.
Yes.
Crazy.
And they outdid that with this film, the third one.
Well, so the second one was very shocking in how graphic and like
they upped the ante compared to the first one. Yes.
So then the third one, I don't want to say like they upped the ante, but they fucking matched that bar and maybe went like a over on the third one.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I still think the kill in the second movie might still be my favorite, although I do need to rewatch the third one again.
Yeah.
That being said, the level of craziness and like kind of like creativeness with that one kill in the second movie, the third movie, there was like 4 of those.
Yes.
Whereas in the second movie, all the other ones were just your basic slasher type of kills, brutal and gory, but not as creative, I would say, as that one kill.
Yeah.
But in the third movie, almost every kill was very, very creative in the way that he killed them in this movie.
Yeah.
Not only that, there's a Christmas theme in the third one, which is, we were a big fan of watching the
Krampus on steroids.
Yeah, watching Art the Clown, and again, going with themes of the slasher films. There is other Christmas slasher films.
Yeah.
You know, Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Krampus,
Black Christmas.
Yeah.
There's lots of there's a legacy of these holiday.
There's a lot of mythos
slasher movies. Yeah. And with the second film, you got the Halloween-based one, and with the third film, you get the Christmas one.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I like how these movies all blend into one another. Where they end, it starts off like minutes later, or like directly, like they might even re-show the last minute of the movie.
Continuity is pretty good.
Yeah. So like, there's really no time lapse, and if there is, they will just straight up explain it to you. But they always have a great cold open kind of kill in these movies too. Like in this one, they kind of jumped ahead, I felt like, and showed you that scene.
Yeah, so they had a different timeline. So they kind of did like whatever amount of time before scene and then backtrack to like right after.
And then once that gets sorted out, they do jump ahead about 5 years in this one, if I'm not mistaken, correct? I think it was about a 5-year period because
yeah.
So
there's a little time jumping, but it's not confusing.
No, not at all. Not at all.
They very much like they're not shy in showing you where that time jumps happen and to make sure that you're like with it in the storyline.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, Art the Clown is this killer clown character who basically just goes around killing people sadistically for his own pleasure. Like I'd seen the actor talking about it, and somebody had asked, like, why does he do these things? What's his motivation? And he answered somebody, I think it was on Twitter or something. The actor said he takes pleasure in this. He finds this fun.
Oh,
he finds when he kills people, he's laughing. He enjoys it. He really has no motivation other than going around and doing this and spreading misery and trauma and basically like,
mine is going for the one that got away. So the final girl.
That's right. Yeah. Which you'll have to have in these. And that's what I kind of love about these movies too, is that obviously Damien Leone, you can tell even with the themes in these films, even with like, you know, the slasher rules, at the end of the day, there is still rules that you have to somewhat abide by in slasher films. You can get creative and you can kind of lead people astray at times, but there is like something you have to follow,
a guideline,
which is what the Scream movies were all about, right? It was kind of delving into that whole aspect of horror movies, right? And the fact that they have rules and
their formula,
in sequels, the rules are different, right? Like all that kind of thing. So like it is so much fun to see that these movies have evolved in such a great way, honestly.
Oh, I can't wait to see where it goes.
And so rankings for these movies. Would you know your current rankings of these out of all three films?
3, 2, 1.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And the reason being, and I rewatched the second one today. Second one's great.
That's great. Like the storyline, it has nothing to do with the kills. It has nothing to do with the production. Like the production,
the kills help, I think, but
my thing is actually the story.
Yes.
Like the first one, you don't get a lot of story. Second one, you're starting in it. Third one, you're in it. So that's why I think my progression is backwards like that.
Yeah.
And again, because of the popularity, the production gets better. But I think it has more to do with the actual storyline that actually gets me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the third film is the perfect mix of kills and story. They've upped the ante in both regards. Also, it was a nice 2 hours and a few minutes, I think, this one.
Yeah.
The last one was a little long. It was like 2 hours and 18 minutes. It was it was like the longest out of the series, where I feel like based off that success of the first one or whatever buzz they had gotten, I think they knew they had to put everything into the second movie or else there wouldn't have been a third movie.
Well, yeah, they needed to make their money so that they could do the third one.
Right. So I think based off the success of the second movie, then they were able to say, oh, yeah, we have 3, 4, and 5 chapters possibly planned for this as a result of that. Well, and now it's just a phenomenon, right? It also beat out the horrible failure of Joker 2 this past weekend in the theaters. It actually was the #1 movie in theaters this past weekend because their only competition at this moment in time coming out was Joker 2 this past weekend in the box office. And it actually was the #1 movie out this past weekend that we had watched it. So congrats, or the opening weekend, the opening weekend of this film. So congrats to Terrifier 2, honestly.
Well, so just to show, I've pulled up here the growth of the movie. So in 2016, they made the movie for $35,000. The budget was made back 10 times over. Terrifier 2 was made for $250,000, which made back 60 times over.
Holy crap.
And now Terrifier 3, which cost $2 million, its biggest movie in the US, taking $18.3 million in one weekend.
Wow. And still counting. It's still in
that's what I mean,
right
just
now.
the first weekend.
You know, it's great to see. Honestly, it just shows that this genre is alive still. There's people interested in it. And
people want it if it's there.
But even that, the fact that they're just hitting the pavement with this. They're going to festivals. They're doing the work. Like good for them. Honestly,
I love it.
It's a great success story. It's nice to see that it's getting so many people interested in this. A franchise where, you know, it's kind of crazy to see that it actually got off the ground today,
I know.
Right? But yeah,
especially after seeing All Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Once you watch that, you're like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
But it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Which is even a few years before that. Honestly, I feel like this movie franchise is like 20 years in the making. If you go back from the time the shorts originally came out,
the character actually
was the inception of the character, and when he did the shorts, which led into the anthology, which I think was even a few years before Terrifier, the first movie. Then I think this has been almost like 20 years in the making. This whole character, like, honestly. I mean, if you look that up, All Hallows Eve was probably a few years before Terrifier, or the Terrifier short. It's got to be.
When did Art the Clown first appear?
So very impressive, though.
Ninth Circle was 2008.
There you go. So we're looking.
Terrifier. Oh, I guess that's the original short, was 2011.
So 2008.
All Hallows Eve 2013.
So 2008. So we're talking about 18 years ago.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Now, honestly, no, not 18 years ago. I'm really bad at math.
You're better 2008 than me, I'm just like,
is 10, 16 years ago.
Same
16
thing.
years ago. So yeah, maybe not 20 years, but still, that's a hell of a long time to be.
Close.
He originally, and there is a nod to that original short film in this movie. That's all I'll say. I won't spoil it for you guys, but honestly, go check this out. This is not the type of franchise either. I would say if you showed up to this movie and watched it for the first time, that you're going to be completely lost. I think you can jump right in. I mean, listen, it'll give them enough to go back and want to check out the earlier installments. But I think if you
like the Terrifier, I thought you meant of Terrifier 3. I'm like, no, you can just Terrifier.
You can jump into Terrifier 3 without having to watch the other ones. Absolutely. I would encourage, if you want to see the best of this series and you want to get interested in this, you could go and check out this in theaters right now. You can. I'm just saying, for anybody, I know that's not the way you like to do things, but if anybody is interested and they want to see the newest movie, I don't think you'll be completely lost, is what I'm saying.
No, they do a good job of like piecing things together, but I'm also a weird completionist.
Yeah, we're not saying you. I'm talking about the general public right now. But if you are like Christine, then go back and watch. You don't really have to watch All Hallows Eve. It's cool.
Just Terrifier.
Just Terrifier.
The original trilogy. That's all.
Yeah. But I would agree. I think each one installment's gotten gorier and better kills, as well as better story. So the third one, I go 3, 2, 1 as well, from top down of my favorites of the franchise. They're all fun though. Honestly, even the first one has some great stuff in it. I mean, I
love watching it.
Yeah.
I love watching
the first one is definitely the weirdest of the films. It has
the charm though.
Yeah, but it's so weird because like you can tell they had so little to work with. There's so many weird things that go nowhere in terms of the plot.
Nothing about them. That's the best part.
Not only that, there's characters and things that occurred in the first movie that have followed throughout all 3 films. Yeah. Like there is a character
there's a full plot that happens throughout all 3 films. That's right.
You may not be introduced to the final girl in the first film that's introduced in the second one, but there is someone that's introduced in the first movie that's still around, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But check these movies out, guys. If you're into slashers, if you're into horror films, it's beloved by many right now, surprisingly. So
well, we learned that out of all my graphic tees, this is the franchise I have the most of, which is weird.
That's right. I got the one which we probably wore to the premiere. Well, not the premiere. We went a few days after it had come out. We unfortunately were too busy to go for the first day, or we would have been there. But
it's fine.
It was in a big theater this time, as I mentioned. It was like in a
it's like Ultra AVX. Like the sound was like blaring and everything.
I mean, they barely filled that theater up because I don't know how many people were aware of it. It was a massive theater, though. It was a massive theater. So, like, the fact that it actually made it to the big screen like that, I was happy to see.
And a few days in, so it's probably
yeah. Okay, so that's Terrifier 3. Big 2 thumbs up for me and Christine. We really quite enjoyed that. Let's move on to Smile 2. As I mentioned, the previous movie came out in 2022, which we also saw in theaters at that time. And that was one of those ones where you kind of, the trailer looked good. Cheap Night.
I'm always down to watch a horror movie.
Cheap Night at the Movies. I'm sure it came out around Halloween time again. We went and checked it out. And that was one of those movies where, like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And it turned out to be more enjoyable than we expected. And I believe it, that film also was pretty popular. I feel like when it came out,
they had really good promo for the first one.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching, well, no, like the first one was shocking because all of a sudden, like, you'd be watching like a baseball game. And I remember seeing like somebody just standing there like,
yeah, that's
and,
right.
Have like a little sign. And you're like, what the fuck is this weirdo doing? And then you find out that it's promo for this fucking movie, which I thought was genius. So they just had like plants in different spots and like high publicized places, which works really well for this film. I feel like actually more for the second one than the first one.
Yeah. So the second movie, once again, slight spoilers, nothing crazy. If you watch the trailers, I'm sure you'll get this out of this. The second one now. So Smile is basically, again, it's like a trauma demon. It's kind of similar in ways, honestly, to Terrifier in the sense that this is a demon that feeds off of the trauma of others, and it attaches itself to hosts and basically kills them within a week's time and goes from one person to the next. And it's kind of similar to It Follows. It's very much like It Follows.
Much more like It Follows and like what the fuck was The Ring?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like very much like The Ring.
The Ring predates all that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So yeah, it's a curse or a demon. It's one of those type of situations where whoever dies, it moves on to the next person. And there's a way, you have to figure out a way to break the chain to get yourself out of that situation, or you're going to be next. And every movie, there's the person that it focuses on that it gets attached to. And like any of those movies, the person has to try to figure out a way by the end of the timeline, a time of them being alive, to stop this from happening to them and from dying. Now, I feel like there is huge potential with the ending of this film that they've grown this to a point where there could be many sequels. The world is growing bigger. This thing is spreading big time. Not to spoil what happens at the end, but I will say, yeah, there's room to grow. Let's say, like in terms of moving forward, if they choose to do more Smile movies, it's very possible that they can go ahead and do that now, especially with the conclusion of this one. And in this movie, the main person that they focus on that has the smile, or gets it within the first bit of the film, is a pop star.
Yes.
Who, like the first movie where it was a doctor, is dealing with a trauma from somebody dying that was close to them. In the first film, it was the person's mother who killed herself. And in this one, she was involved in a car crash with somebody
with like her boyfriend at the time,
who died, and she survived, but she had to see him die.
Yeah.
And
but that was just a trauma.
That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, she's like, she's your classic pop star, went to rehab, was on drugs, went to rehab, has gotten out now, trying to piece back her career back together.
It's her up and comings.
What'd you think of this one?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so much better than the first one, in my opinion. And again, I haven't rewatched the first one again. I think I only watched it the first time in theaters. I don't think I've rewatched it.
Same till I watched it yesterday before we went to see it. Yeah. So I rewatched it as well.
You rewatched it. I didn't get it.
Totally agree with you though. Way better.
This one, so good. The friggin' like the anticipation that this movie gave you, like just not even like any of the story plot, but just like the feelings that this fucking movie gave you. And you're just sitting there on the edge of your seat like, why? I didn't get that really in the first one, I felt like. A little bit,
there's a bit of anxiety.
There was some eerie, but I didn't feel like the anticipation wasn't there as much as this one. Like this one, you felt so helpless because the character was helpless.
Yeah.
So like you really like I don't know her name. What is her name that was the main character in this?
The thing about this one is the type of person that they have in this situation is way better in this one. She is a pop star. She constantly has people around her to a degree that the person from the first film did not. she's put in way more high anxiety situations because of the fact that she's a pop star. This is also something I think within our culture that we're becoming more familiar with as a result of obviously things like the Britney Spears and other pop stars that we've seen go through mental breakdowns or have drug addictions and have come forward now with their stories. Also, even in our films, like, I mean, previously this year, we had a movie like Trap, which I don't think depicted being a pop star as good as this movie, but that was a movie where it was a pop star in a messed up situation. We also had like, you know, whether or not you were a fan of the show, because I think it was not very well received. There was that show with The Weeknd where she was a pop star.
That was weird. I don't even remember the name of the show.
Yeah, there's that show, which The Idol, which was following a pop star who had a lot of issues. And I feel like a lot of the things that you can identify with the struggles of a pop star were very present in this film. And I think as a result, it really helped like this situation.
Oh my God, like, and so like the actress, so her name is Naomi Scott. She was immaculate and expressing like the feelings and like showing the emotion of what you would go through. So I don't know. I really felt like she kept trying to reach out. She wants to express, and like she's getting pushed down, whatever. Like a lot of pop stars kind of like, you're just do your thing. And like, she's trying to show, you know, what's happening a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. She was so good.
She was.
I really liked her in this.
But also like the constant struggle of the team behind her that are trying to push her because she's supporting all of them.
What's I mean? Yeah.
Which, you know, again, like, you know, that is, I think that was actually a big theme in that Idol show too, which we didn't even finish. I feel like we watched the first couple of episodes, but like, but yeah, it is very evident in this one that, you know, those things were existing within like this character as well.
The pressure to succeed.
Right. And the fact that no one cares about your well-being around you. Like her mother was her manager, which is a classic move too. Yeah. In this movie. And, you know, listen, on top of everything else going on in her life, because she's a year sober and blah, 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 blah. Guess what? She has to deal with this smile thing that attaches herself to her in her life.
And a debilitating injury from a car accident.
Right. Which she's not exactly sober because she's taking Vicodin for her back.
She wasn't taking it. Like she took it sometimes, I think.
Right.
Or she tried to.
Right. But that kind of, you know, as you'll see if you watch the movie,
this is a little more spoilery than leads
into the movie. Yeah, it's kind of the first little bit of the setup of the film. But yeah, and again, like Terrifier, this takes place a few days after the events of the conclusion of the first Smile movie. So if you watch the first Smile movie, you'll be familiar with the cop character that was left and given the smile at the end of the first movie. Yeah. And then you get to see what happens with him at the start of this film, because this is only a few days later. Actually, I think it's about 6 days later, which is at the end of almost his week of being alive and dealing with this. Yeah. And in the first movie, and this is spoilers for that movie, not this movie, you learned that there is a way to pass it on if you kill a person in front of another person, and therefore you're killing somebody instead of them taking your life and
somebody witnessing.
Right. And if you do that, basically you pass the demon on to the person that you killed somebody in front of.
Yeah. So basically, like, the demon gets passed along to somebody who witnesses a tragic death.
Right.
So whether it be yourself or another person, that's what you find out at the end. It gets passed along and then continues that way. So
yeah. So that is what you find out in the first movie. Now, what I liked about the sequel is they explore other ways you can possibly get rid of this thing, which honestly, like, I'm so glad they just didn't run it back for us in this movie. It's a different circumstance. It's a different person. It's a different approach even to take this thing down. And I think the stakes are higher. The anxiety is higher and the scares are better in this one.
Yeah.
So honestly, like, hands down, because I know you said you hadn't seen it since it came out. I did rewatch this as well before we went to see the second one. this is way better than the second one. So if you were a fan of the first one, definitely go see this one, because,
or even if you were on the fence on the first one, but like kind of the storyline, this one, definitely check out.
Now let's talk about Ray Nicholson, which was teased at the start of the film. As I mentioned, they were kind of promoting this movie with him on the poster, on one of the posters anyways. And as well as just leading up to it, he's been doing interviews and talking about him being in this movie, the fact that he is Jack Nicholson's son. And obviously there's a legacy there, not only from creepy smiling, but being, in scary movies, The Shining, of course.
Classic horrors.
What did you think of him in this?
Oh my God, I loved it. I was so excited. He is the spitting image of his father. It's, well, as you can see in our video here, like our background. It's so eerie, and he's so perfect. And I didn't even know he existed until this movie and the promo of it. Had no idea. Like, I assumed he had kids, didn't know how old they were, didn't know anything about them, didn't know they were acting, but he was so good. And he's not like a main character. That's my favorite part. The fact that he's in like on posters and like doing the promos.
Sparingly used.
Like, he is not a main character, which I thought was so good.
But used so well. Like,
oh my God, immaculate.
He actually is the catalyst of one of the best scenes of the film. Actually, I feel like, honestly,
he's a underlying trauma of a lot.
He's the guy who died. So whatever. I'll spoil that. He is the guy who died.
Who's the trauma?
That follows her around. Let's say, right? And if you know anything about the smile demon from the first movie, you know that it'll do anything to mess with this person. So the fact that, as you can see from her background here, he shows up in the film, busts out that smile looking like this. It's just excellent.
I'd be fucking running too.
Yeah, just excellent. Well played. And in a way, there's some nods, I felt like, to The Shining, honestly. There really was.
Well,
I don't want to set up the scene where he appears like this, but it's I wouldn't say like super similar to the Shining, but Shining-esque, I think. Like, there's ways that they kind of worked it in.
Nicholson-esque.
Yeah, Nicholson-esque. You're right. But yeah, really well done. A lot of fun. I hope we see more of him. I don't know if this is his first thing. It's the first thing that's gotten my notice.
That's what I said. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
anything.
He may have been in other things, but the way they've been promoting this film, this is definitely like, even though, like you said, he's not a major part of this movie, they were using that to kind of promote this movie.
Do you know what he was in on a very bit part?
Something we watched?
Yes.
What is it?
A long time ago, back in 2006.
2006? That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What?
He was in the Benchwarmers.
Oh, yeah, right. He was one of the kids in that movie?
He was the kid catcher.
Well, that makes sense because Adam Sandler did a movie with Jack Nicholson. And knowing Adam Sandler just puts friends of people he
was
knows.
Also in Licorice Pizza.
That also makes sense because look at all the sons. What's his name? Son was in that movie too.
James Gandolfini.
Not James Gandolfini.
That's not his
no, son? James Gandolfini was in the movie that they did, the Sopranos prequel. It was
right. I'm mixing it up.
The guy who died that was in all those movies, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, that was in that movie.
Right.
Yeah, that was that because he was in all of his films, that director's movies previously.
Yeah. Sorry, right? I mixed that up.
But you're right. No, but James, it's so weird to see all these actors that have died now, or just maybe not in the limelight, like Jack Nicholson.
Their kids are coming up. Yeah,
that's right. So
he was also in Mayans MC, which we never watched. He's in 4 episodes.
That's
of that.
The Sons of Anarchy spinoff. Yeah. Okay, so he's been doing some stuff.
Yeah,
but nothing that big. I feel like yet, right? Like,
this is probably the biggest thing. Yeah,
right. So we'll see. Maybe this is guy.
Benchwarmers was his first movie, apparently.
That's fun.
Kid Catcher #1, Game 2.
There you go.
No, I want to watch it again.
I love Benchwarmers.
Me
so
too.
There you go. All right, so yeah, Smile 2, a lot of fun, way better than the first. Also, shout out to the cop that started the film out, Kyle Gallner, who was in the first movie as well. He's been in a lot of horrors that we recently learned. I always felt like this guy looked familiar, but we
don't know how familiar.
Yeah, he's in a lot of things that we've witnessed though. But so yeah, I guess you can already tell with only 2 movies in this franchise so far. We would say 2-1. Not two, number 2 is the first movie. Is number 1 is is the second one.
Place, yeah.
Still good, but I also feel like this is one where you don't need to have seen the first movie to jump into it. Again, it kind of gives you some context
to it.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't need to. I don't think you'll be lost.
It definitely adds to it, though, especially the way it starts.
Absolutely. Because it takes place right after.
But that's what I mean.
Just like Terrifier. Like, it really just blends in one into another. But I just like how they grew the world, added on to the rules, added on to how this thing works, added on to the way it screws with people. Like, this is what's good about these progression in these horror movies. Because even if you get like a C- horror movie, whatever, like maybe a B-, something that's maybe not going to be like, the indie darling horror movie or like the most well-regarded film that's out that year, which horrors rarely are. Unless it's like one of those things where it's like an Ari Aster film, Hereditary, where it's like a smart horror film in some regard, right? Like, they called his elevated horror when he came out, which is a little bit pretentious, but I mean, I love those movies.
Me too.
I'm just saying, like, that's how he kind of looked at
different type of horror.
If it's an A24 movie, let's say, right? This is Blumhouse, I believe, Smile, if I'm not mistaken. Is it? Maybe it isn't, actually. It feels like a Blumhouse movie. Is it A24? It might be.
Tell me on here?
I don't know.
Before we start fucking.
I don't think it's A24.
Does this tell me the friggin' production company?
Maybe not. I don't know. If you Google it, though, you probably can see. But yeah, I mean, listen, if I gave Smile, the first one, 3 stars out of 5, I'd give this 4 out of 5, which I feel like I did on my Letterboxd. So there you go. That's kind of in comparison. Yeah, I don't know who's actually the production company.
Temple Hill.
Okay, so it's neither. This feels more like a Blumhouse movie than an A24 movie, though.
Blumhouse is so hit or miss.
Yeah, absolutely. But they've done some good stuff too.
They sure
Let's
have.
not forget. They've done a lot. That's
why they're iconic.
Yeah, exactly. So I think right now A24 and Blumhouse are the 2 biggest horror production companies.
But A24 is the more consistent one.
Yes and no, depending what you're looking for.
Okay, more consistent for us.
Yes, yeah. Depending what you're looking for in a horror film, I think you can get good stuff out of both.
Sure.
Because here's the thing with Blumhouse, you get way more popcorn type films, like and even ones I would say that are like teen slasher movies.
Sure.
Which, like Happy Death Day to You, I think was a Blumhouse movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Then you get like Paradise Island or some shit like that.
Right. So, I get it. There's going to be some stinkers in there, like Night Swim, but you're going to...
I hated that movie so fucking much.
I believe that was a Blumhouse movie.
I think it was.
Anyways.
That's my argument. I don't know the last A24 movie that I was like, ugh.
So there you go. So yeah, Smile 2, Terrifier 3. Both good movies that are still in theaters right now that you guys can check out. If you guys want to go check out a scary movie the last week here of October as we get closer to Halloween, definitely check out either of these. I think you'll be satisfied.
Still have a Tuesday. You can do double feature.
There you go. So yeah, so that's I think, is there anything else you want to say about either of these films?
No, they were so much better than their prequels.
Yeah, I think we covered it well without spoiling too much. But we had to give you guys a little bit of context to get you interested in checking these out, possibly if you haven't as of yet. But before we go, why don't we talk about maybe pull up your Letterboxd there, maybe talk about some other movies you may have been watching lately for Spooky Month here. Maybe since the last time you've been on the show, because I know it's been a couple weeks since you're on, and I know we've watched some horror movies since then. So anything else you want to mention?
Well, I know I watched Hocus Pocus and The Craft, which are both just classics.
90s. Yeah.
Strange Darling, we watched.
Also with Kyle Gallner, who I just mentioned, who is the cop in Smile, which actually came out, I feel like, late last year, but just made it onto more streaming services this year. So more people are talking about it this year, but when I look it up, it looks like it came out at the tail end of last year, 2023. But I think it's just really been getting a lot of buzz and getting more people checking it out this year. I really like that movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good.
That's one of those movies, guys. I don't want to tell you anything about it.
No, you got to go in blind.
It is good. It is starring the same guy, like I said, that was in Smile 1 and 2, who was the cop character, Kyle Gallner, who's been in a bunch of things. even the last 2013 Nightmare on Elm Street, or whatever, the 2000s Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it's 2013 around
210?
there. 210 maybe, yeah,
something like that. I don't know.
He was in that. Look him up. He's got
a good rap sheet of horror.
Yeah, which we just found out. We couldn't remember where we knew him from, but yeah, he's
got one of those faces that you're like, that guy.
Yeah, he's in it. Plus, I want to give the actress's name because she was really great in it too.
Oh my god,
Willa Fitzgerald, who I'm not as familiar with, but
I know her name.
She was in it as well. She's been in a bunch of things here. She was in Little Women. Oh, you know where she was in?
Oh, the Fall of Usher,
yeah, which we were big fans of. Which character was she in that? I can't remember.
No.
She's in the Scream TV series, it looks like. Not too much. Not too much, but she's been in something. Yeah, must be, she's in some things.
Yeah.
But so there's that. She was really good in this. And actually, Giovanni Ribisi was like, I think he directed this movie, or he produced it, or he was involved in this film. Did he do the cinematography on this one?
I think I saw cinematography.
Yeah, which is very interesting because if you watch this movie, it's all shot on film.
He was a producer, sorry.
And there's some really great shots in this.
And he was a cinematographer.
Yeah, there's some really interesting, like artsy. This is one of those artsy horror films, but the less you know about it, the better.
Yeah.
And it really twists your expectations. Yeah, go check it out. It's really good. Strange Darling. Anything else?
That's really all that I watched since the last time since Beetlejuice, I think.
Let me check out here. I mean, I watched all the Halloweens. If you guys want to check out what I thought about all those,
I watched Joker, but I don't want to talk about it.
Was not a fan, like many people. I watched all 13 Halloween films. And actually, there's something I can tease. Other than The Crow, that'll be coming out on Halloween, that episode of us talking about The Crow, me, JT, and Julie. That's Julie's pick for this month. There'll also be like a 20-minute video dropping, which was a clip that we didn't put out on our Halloween episode of me power ranking of all 13 Halloween films for like 20 minutes. It's really just me diving into the rankings and why they ranked where they did of all 13 Halloween movies. So if you guys want to hear about which movies are worth checking out in that franchise, tune into that. Like I said, it's like a 20-minute clip. I think that's going to be airing around 7 p.m. on Halloween. And then the episode of The Crow will be airing at 8 p.m. You can go back and watch those whenever, but if you want to see any of those, it'll be both coming out on Halloween night, those episodes. Fun. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I'm glad we did that. So as you mentioned, Strange Darling, I watched all the Halloweens. I don't know if there's anything else really since the last time that we did Beetlejuice that was worth mentioning here, because I'm looking at my my list here. Watched. Yeah. We've really been kind of lacking these last couple of weeks in terms of the horrors. Yeah, we kind of did a bunch in September, leading into October, and then October we've just gotten pretty busy. Yeah. So, although I wouldn't say busy with me having watched 13 Halloween movies,
you had a weekend off.
Yeah, but yeah, other than that, I would say those are kind of the horror movies we've seen lately, and there's a few other ones that came out these last couple of weeks that I'm looking forward to watching. There's that one about that head. There's like a Shudder, Daddy's Head.
Yeah.
There's a couple on like It's What's Inside or What's Inside that's on Netflix. I heard
that came out that comes out.
And a Kendrick movie has come out. The new VHS Beyond has come out. So I mean, leading up to Halloween
to watch.
this next week, we're probably have to catch a few others here, but there's a lot out there, guys, to check out.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited.
All right. Anything else you wanted to mention here before we wrap up? Otherwise,
no, I think we pretty much covered it.
I think so.
The sequels actually were better than the originals, I felt.
Yeah. These are definitely horror sequels worth seeking out to check out this month. And if you're not familiar with them, go check out the originals. As I mentioned, they're still all worth checking out.
Oh, yeah. None of them were bad.
And then, this way, there's better to come and there's more to kind of add on to it. And the story progresses and the mythos gets added on to. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what comes of this Smile. I think there's honestly more to come, hopefully.
I hope there better be at least one more movie.
I think so. There's
gotta be.
There's potential. I'm starting to think of different scenarios where they can expand this. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of different scenarios now where they can really stretch the boundaries of the story, right? There's definitely possibilities now, given what happened in this film. And then if you look at things
just how far do you want to go?
The Terrifier, you know, I feel like there's still some more mileage in that as well. But
I don't want them to overstay their welcome.
Damien Leone, I will end on this. He did recently, I did see a clip of him saying, like, hey, listen, what could I see it going to, like, you know, where they really jump the shark and well, he didn't say that. I'm using those terms in horror films where it's like, oh,
where it's Art the Clown in space.
He said that. Yeah. He said, could I see Terrifier in space? Sure. He's like, but I'm not so sure the story's going to go there, but could I see it going there? There's a possibility. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I could do something like that. He says the way he said it was, it's like, it's not in the cards, but he could. And would he hate seeing it? He said, no. So you never know. Once it goes to space, though, you've officially jumped the shark in terms of, you know, we've seen it for Leprechaun, we've seen it for Jason, we've seen it for Hellraiser, we've seen it for a lot of. I don't think Freddy ever went to space though. Yeah, he always stayed on solid ground, but he's in your dreams. Yeah, there you go. Well, there you go. Christine's yawning now, folks. So it's time to wrap up.
It's 1 o'clock.
Yeah. So thank you to everybody that tuned into the show here. Make sure to tune in next week. As I mentioned, on Halloween, we'll be airing The Crow, as well as my rankings of all 13 Halloween films. So make sure to tune into that. And yeah, thank you to Christine once again for joining us. And she smiles weirdly on the outro. All right, I'm going to play the music, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And I got to bust out the Terrifier theme once more for you guys. All right, everyone.